One.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good. It's a little
Awesome.
cold and wet and rainy up here in Western New York, but
Mm,
you know,
Down here in New
it's
York, it's wet and rainy too.
November.
Yeah, exactly.
It's been raining down there a lot.
Not so much. I left the Upper West Side to come home, and it was sort of sprinkly, kind of like that Seattle kind of misty rain. So I'm not sure what other parts of the city look like, but I had to walk in it, and that was fine.
Okay.
Hmm.
Yeah. I hate walking in the rain, but I hate being wet. So,
Well, there you
but I have a
go.
giant dog that I walk every day. So, it is what it
So
is. But
got a
hey,
bite.
everybody
You
out
got a bite
there,
it. Hey.
out there in the world, whether you're here with us in 2025 November or sometime in the far distant future. Hello,
Hmm.
hello. If you're
Hello.
here with us, definitely say hello. Put something in the chat. We'd love to hear from you. So Stephen, so this is the nap kickback where we get on and and we talk about all things relating to archives in one form or another.
Hmm.
Um, and we are the co-founders of the Nomadic Archivist Project, where we definitely do things with archives one way or the other.
Hmm.
I'm
Yes.
Miranda, and I'm joined by Stephen, who's I think on this side actually.
Yes, exactly. When you pointed there, I was like, oh, that's how she sees me. Ooh, interesting. Yes.
Always on the wrong. So what are we up to tonight, Stephen? What are we talking about?
We are talking about our archival or archivist heroes and sheroes and
Yeah.
theros and so forth. And so I'm excited because I I'm trying to do in things now that have two or three uses rather than just one use. So I've always wanted to write about these people. And in some cases I have. I've interviewed people, I've written about some of the people I'm going to mention tonight. So it gave me a moment to kind of pause and think about their impact on my life as an archivist, which is really, really critical. And what you call them earlier? You called them the three.
The three Ds.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So, in this order, I'll talk about them.
Hang on a
That,
second, Stephen.
oh,
1 second.
sure. Mhm.
So give me 1 second. I'm not sure why. It seems like, yeah, go ahead, Stephen.
Are we
Tell us.
live?
I think we are live, but there's a
Hey,
weirdness with
Tanya.
the live.
Hey, Tanya. So, okay, so just to get us started. One, I'm the kind of person who pays homage to the people who gave me life, who poured into me, as one of our friends, Christopher Stallings, would say, and offered me a different way of understanding a thing, an idea, what have you. And I had like a lot of archivists, I had a circuitous way of kind of coming to the field. And when I got here, it was like a good fit. It was a good fit. Lots to learn, of course, but good fit. It satisfied a lot of things that I enjoy, like reading, writing, thinking, history, culture, and just numerous other things. So the first person I'm going to talk about, and I'll put them in chronological order in which I met them. So Howard Dotson, former director of the Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture. I met Howard Dotson in 1997. I was a graduate student at Clark Atlanta University and attended the American Libraries Association's conference in San Francisco in June of that year. And the only reason why I wanted to go was because I wanted to give Howard Dotson my resume.
How did you know about Howard Dodson at that point?
So the internet was just popping off, and Schomburg was one of the first New York Public Libraries to actually put up a web page, talk about their collections, had databases. They were just, it wasn't a really large website, but it was enough for me to find out about them. And I was interested in moving to New York City. And although I had a job offer from Brooklyn Public Library, Schaumburg was the only place I wanted to work because I thought at one day I wanted to direct an institution like the Schaumburg Center that would
Okay.
have collections and public interfacing through interpretive programming and so forth. So, yeah, yeah.
Okay. Okay. So you knew more about the Schomburg at that point than you knew about Howard Dotson himself.
Oh no, correct. I didn't even know what Howard Dotson looked like. I just
Okay.
knew that I knew I was going to find Howard Dotson. I
Okay.
don't know if it works for you this way because if I get a feeling in my bones, it may go against all logics and it doesn't matter. I'm just going to do that thing. So my my goal was this. I remember getting on the plane. I remember landing in San Francisco. I think we had a night just before we went to the conference the next day. And my plan was to go to all the Black exhibit spaces, like Black Enterprise, Ebony, Jet or whatever. And I was going to just go, tell me what Howard Dotson looks like, please. What
Yes.
is he
Okay.
wearing? So I did that. That's what I did. I got there and I found Howard Dotson standing talking to someone. And he put his arm out to me like, I know you're there. Just stay there. Let me finish this conversation. He did. It was really quick. And he turned and looked at me. And I remember saying something to the effect that I want to work at the Schomburg Center, that I'd had some experience working as a children's librarian for 3 years, and that I was in grad school right now, but I was graduating in December. And I really wanted to work at the Schomburg and knew that that was the only place I wanted to work, that I had,
Okay.
I love Black culture. And why not? And
Yeah.
so I was only told recently that he gave the second person I'm going to mention my resume and told her, this is a race man. You need to interview him. And I never
Okay.
heard that story before. And that was super exciting because using language like race man and race woman is for some people
Yeah.
antiquated,
Very
but
antiquated.
it's right on time for me. So
Right.
am I. I'm antiquated if that's the case. So
Okay. Okay. So you saw him. Okay. So you knew about the Schomburg. You knew you wanted to be at the Schomburg Center.
hmm
And you went up, you gave him your resume.
hmm
Then you began to work at the Schomburg Center. You were hired.
Well, he gave my resume to the second person I'm going to speak about, Dinah LeChatinier. And
Okay.
Dinah LeChatinier at that time was both the curator of the Manuscripts, Archives, and Rare Books Division and assistant director of collections and services. So she
Okay.
managed the other curators as well.
Okay.
And so Diana reached out to me and I met her at a conference, the third annual Black Caucus of the American Library Association conference in North Carolina.
Hmm.
And so I met her and we were talking, and she goes, well, how much archival experience do you have? And I was like, well, helped to process one collection at the library, the special collections and archives at the Robert Woodruff Library, which is the library for the consortium of colleges, Morehouse, Spelman, Clark, Morris Brown. And so I had very little experience in archives. I didn't know much about EAD, which was encoding archival description, was a new way of being able to digitize finding aids information and put it online so that people could search it. And Dinah said, like, okay, she says, well, we talked a little bit more. And I guess she took a chance on me and said, okay, I want to hire this guy. So when I moved to New York at the end of the year, December 97, I had an interview with Diana, and I began working at the Schomburg Center February of 98, which was tremendous. It was just tremendous. It was overwhelming. I was playing catch up. Just because I was a children's librarian for 3 years, it didn't mean anything. It just meant that I was in a library, but these were different materials, a different set of um, of understandings and processes and so forth. And Dinah trained me up well. So the guy you're looking at
Hmm.
today really is Dinah is responsible for his training, but both training and political awareness of what archives could be.
Okay. So Diana and Dodson, they're very two different people. They had two different roles
hmm hmm
within an archival or cultural heritage
hmm
institution. So Dodson was the director,
right.
or the chief, I think it was called at
Yeah,
that point,
his
of
actual
the
title was
Schomburg.
chief. You're correct. Yes, chief.
Right.
Mhm.
And Diana was in the archives department as the head curator. So
Mhm.
why? So I guess I'm kind of curious to know, like, how
Mhm.
this idea of archivists we love, how does
Mhm.
Dotson fit within that framework?
Well, I th- for me, Dotson fits in within the framework of archivist because not only did he manage archivist, he was responsible for helping to build out those collections in remarkable ways in
Hmm.
terms of acquisitions, in terms of programming. He was one of the people who worked with the Institute of the Black World in Atlanta. So that
Hmm.
was a part of his archival training and understanding that you needed the evidence. And so he, although he didn't work as an archivist, he understood the stakes. And he also had very strong archivists, excuse me, curators working with him to help build those collections in ways that I can't see that other, like another combination of people in terms of Howard Dotson, Jeanette McLaurin, Mary Yearwood, Daniela Chatinier, James Briggs Murray. These were all, and excuse me, and Victor, I forget Victor's last name, my apologies. But these were very strong curators, and so they understood what the stakes were when it came to building out what the Schomburg became as a in its maybe third incarnation. First, what Schomburg in 1925, his collection being purchased by the New York Public Library. Then folks like Lawrence Reddick and Jean Blackwell Hudson. Jean Blackwell Hudson
Hmm.
was she was the one who really advocated for resources for the library, resulting in the building that most people enter to go to the Schomburg. And then this third incarnation was really filling up the house with all this wonderful stuff.
Right. Okay. So I'm asking that because I think it's interesting for people who may not be, an archivist or in this field doing this work, thinking about who could be an archivist.
Hmm.
Does it
Hmm.
have to be somebody who is actually going through the papers and putting them in
Right.
order and making them accessible to people, doing reference work? Like, who can be under this title of archivist we love, and why? And
Hmm.
so that's one of the reasons why I wanted you to kind of talk a little bit more about Howard Dotson
Hmm.
before, and then talk about like the differences too in the types of ways in which somebody like
Hmm.
Diana Lechatinier would show up
Hmm.
under that title as archivist.
Oh yeah. So good, very good question. I think Dotson had a lot of vision, so he understood. Like I said, he knew some of the key players. A great chunk of the Schomburg's collections that came in during that time were from folks who were active in the 60s, who had started organizations, who were scholars, activists, and so forth. Dotson had connections with them. So when it was time to begin thinking about archiving those papers, he was one of the people he was one of the main people to help those people understand why it was important to bring those collections and have them archived at the Schomburg.
Yes.
That could be considered acquisitions work. It could be, and it is acquisitions work. But I think that his one can do archivist work without being called an archivist or assuming that title,
Hmm.
because his work, as you mentioned, he's a chief, and so he's setting the tone. He
Right.
also made sure that the interpretive programs aspect of the Schomburg was really important because those collections drove the programming, the exhibitions, the publications. And so really he understood what was there and trusted his curators to be able to do the work they needed to do, which was more on the ground, meaning that it was the
Right.
day to day, it was the processing. Dinah was managing a number of archivists, um, as well as full time, part time, as well as folks who had been hired for a grant, as well as pages, people who came in who were in college, who were working in the library and getting some skill sets there. She had to, she was the architect of that division and
Right.
also managing other curators as
Right.
well.
Right.
So yeah, so they're differences, but they're also um, there's similarities, but there are major differences in the approach, but they all fit
Hmm.
together. Hmm.
Like the type of work, the day-to-day work.
The day to day work, yes,
Right. But the mission was the same regardless
absolutely.
where they were coming from. Right. Okay.
Mhm.
So tell us more about Diana the Chatinier.
Dinah is probably the for me, and also I think I can't speak to for other archivists. She Dinah had vision. She not only trained me, but she gave me space to grow as an archivist. So meaning that I would come to her with an idea about a particular archival project, and she listen, and then she go, okay, well, let's see how that works out. So she backed me up with the then called the Black and Lesbian Archive, which became the In the Life Archive. She
Mm-hmm.
also, my colleague Leela Sewell Williams came to her with a project called the Hip Hop Archive, and both Leela asked me to work with her on it, and so Dinah was fine because in those two areas, Dinah understood that that the library had some material, but not a lot of primary resource material, and so she wanted to bulk
Right.
up the collections that way. So she allowed her archivists to have vision to make to have vision and to work out that vision with her,
Right.
as a manager. So she also she also managed for a time the scholar in residence program, the scholars that would come in for 6 months to a year on a Ford grant to work in the collections, scholars who needed to be there to work to move their project along or to finish something. These were mostly postdocs, but there were also independent scholars as well. She had her hands in a lot of different things,
Mm-hmm.
but again, for me as an archivist, I don't think I could have had a better education, honestly. And either directly Donna speaking with me, helping me shape and think about the differences between a historian and an archivist in terms of how we catalog a collection, but also listening to
What
her.
are some of those differences?
Well, I was always told, and I actually mentioned this earlier in the talk, historians, archivists are there just to list the facts. We're not to be creative. We're not to do a lot of interpretive work. We're to talk about a collection. This is a box of this material. This is what it includes. But based on what we understand about the person or the institution that created it, we might want to say this material only represents a small amount of, or the material that this person's really well known for is not represented in the collection at all. And one of her famous examples to me was that Schomburg had two letters, Nella Larson letters, and it's
Mm-hmm.
miscellaneous American letters and papers artificial collection. And she said, look at the catalog record. You want to make sure that people know that it is two letters so that someone from Australia who's coming up to look at the Nella Larson letters knows that he, she,
Right.
or they, that's all you're getting. So she helped me make connections in ways that really helped me just, under some basic archival stuff.
Right. So it sounds like what she was trying to say is that the information that as archivists that we need to impart should be really useful for the people who are looking at it, who are doing this in-depth research. So we're not, as archivists,
Right.
trained for this historian difference. Is that
Mm-mm.
we're not trained in a way where, or even have the capacity to do a lot of interpretive
Mm-hmm.
work, as you would say, like, or be, like write huge
Mm-hmm.
biographies on people,
Correct.
and to start to fill in the gaps even from other spaces in terms of
Absolutely.
what somebody's materials might look like. Where our
Mm-hmm.
job is to, as you said, just state the facts. Just say
Just the
what
facts,
is
ma'am. Just the
in,
facts.
just,
Yeah.
yeah, what's included and what's not included, so
Mhm.
that it is very clear to the person who's looking at it or reading,
Mhm.
like the types of guides that you would find online or a catalog
Right.
record, to know
Mhm.
exactly what's included and what isn't. And this idea of like putting huge biographies to people
Right.
isn't, unless they're lesser known, and that
Right, right,
becomes
right.
more interesting. Like if you could go to a shelf or get online and find just tons of information about somebody or something or organization,
Mhm.
um, write less of a historical or
Right.
biographical note. But if that person, that they're not represented in that way, then it's better to give more information so people understand a little bit more background and what the collection is about.
That's a very good point. The last collection I processed was the James Baldwin collection, and at that time there were at least four biographies out about him. not to mention his own work. So we didn't even do a biography, sketch for him because it was clear who he was. It was just a matter of
Right.
what's in the collection. But you're correct, yes.
Yeah. So
And
okay, so Diana, it sounds like she gave you not only the tools to do this work and to do it
hmm
well, but she also gave you the freedom to be innovative and the
hmm
freedom
hmm
to, in terms of like building entire collections, or
hmm
entire
hmm
field of collections, the Black in the Life, Gay and Lesbian Archive.
hmm
And so what else? What else about Diana would you say is pretty important to discuss here?
The last thing I'll say about Dinah, I think is really important, is that she was interested. So there are people who do their work and they stay focused maybe on one or two things or just whatever field that they're in. Dinah was interested in hip hop. She was interested in what was coming in related to LGBTQ artists, writers, activists, or whatnot. She wanted to know things. She was curious. She was interested in public affairs and politics and history, um, and so that helped to be managed by a curator who had imagination.
Right.
I remember giving her some Public Enemy and Tupac to listen to, and she was listening to it and was enjoying it. And so I think at sometimes what we end up doing is growing out of that space, of that curious space, and she always had that. So I think that that also was a hallmark of the collections that she brought in as well, knowing that the audience were not changing, but they were developing. People were asking for different kinds of things. And so I think that as a curator, that's a crucial thing to have, is imagination and to be curious. So
So I want to add one thing that I want to highlight about Howard Dodson, and one thing I want to highlight about Diana Lachatinier. And I think with Dodson, I think having, I think it might be seen, especially when, if people know what the Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture is,
mhm,
that has been around for 100 years,
mhm,
since its founding in 1925, and now it's 2025. So it's kind
mhm,
of a remarkable time to even be talking about the Schomburg. But it kind of
yeah,
seems like a given. Like the Schomburg is this place that couldn't, this Black space with Black cultural heritage,
mhm,
filled up with all these Black and brown archivists. Um, that there, it's just like, and you've been hearing about it for so long. If you've been hearing about it for so long, it might feel like this is a
mhm,
place that couldn't possibly go away or couldn't possibly ever be under threat.
mm,
And but since 1925, it has been under threat, and
mhm,
it is continues to be under threat. And so, even though it's kind of like this true north of, this sort of monument to Black culture and
mm.
history, it is always vulnerable. And Dodson fortified the Schomburg during his
Mhm.
period there. What was he there for, 25 years? I mean, Howard
Yeah,
Dodson did a
84 to
remarkable
2011.
job to
Mhm,
make the Schomburg strong
mhm,
and to keep its enemies at bay, which I can only imagine was a really difficult job.
mhm.
Um, and so he built it up, outside of the organization and within the
Right.
organization with,
Mhm,
as you said, with a strong body of people who were very, very, very interested to see it succeed. And
mhm.
so, that's one of the things that I would definitely attribute to Howard Dodson. And all the things that you said, about Diana Lachatinier, I would also co-sign on. And the other thing I would say is that outside of, working there, she also built up spaces for Black archivists nationally, and
Yes.
she was one of the founding members. And I can't
Mhm,
remember what the name of the group is, of the Society of American Archivists,
mhm.
who created a space for Black archivists
The round
in a
table,
very,
the Black
very,
People of Color
yes,
round table, I believe, yeah.
roundtable, yes.
Mhm,
Um, which I always think, in especially during the same thing, like trying to get spaces like that, when she did, and I can't remember when it started. Was it in the 80s, the 90s? I can't remember.
when Diana started or the organization?
Yeah, when the roundtable began. Do you remember?
I believe it started in 80. I think so.
Okay. Yeah.
Hmm.
Somebody, so whoever's out there in the world, please fact check us on that. Put it in the chat.
Yes.
Let us know.
It may have been
Um,
earlier, like maybe late 70s, but I
oh, I
think
didn't
it's
think it was that
80s.
early.
I think because Dinah
You think
started
so?
at the Schomburg in 1980. Yeah.
Okay. I
Hmm.
don't know. But creating, yeah, those kind of platforms, that kind of space, is hard work. It's really hard work.
Very.
And yeah, and just goes even further to like her dedication, not only within
Hmm.
like the space that she obviously was curator of, but
Hmm.
outside nationally. So give
Hmm.
those two props. So okay, so you said the three Ds. So we had
Correct.
Dotson, Howard Dotson, Diana Lachette-Neer. Who's the third D?
Deborah Willis, Dr.
Deborah
Deborah
Willis.
Willis.
Okay.
Yes, Dr. Deborah Willis.
Who just had a book come out.
Um, um,
Do you have the cover of the
Reflections in
book?
Black, the 25th anniversary. It is very heavy and it is up on my shelf. It is an amazing 25th anniversary of her first publication, Reflections in Black.
Okay, so who
And
is Deborah Willis?
Deborah Willis is a photographer, a curator, a professor, an administrator. And really, she is, there was no field of Black photography before her in terms of being
Hmm.
able to um, collect, report on, um, and continuously. Like she's into her 30th, over 30 books, including um, not just published books, but also exhibitions and other kinds of things she's done to promote the field of, as well as so many Black photographers. I went to
Hmm.
the opening ceremony at NYU, opening program for the 25th anniversary of Reflections in Black. And one person after another said it was Deb Willis that encouraged them, found them. Like
Mm.
she's got an incredible network. She's very humble. She understands how archives can drive scholarship.
Hmm.
She's dedicated, thoughtful, engaged in that way. And so Deb Willis worked at the Schomburg from 1980 to 1992 before she went to go work at the Anacostia, I believe.
Mm.
And so we our times didn't intersect. Our tenures didn't intersect. But when I read about, I remember Deb Willis's her papers were at the Schomburg Center, and I had been working on an accession of them. And I was reading some things that she had written, and I was like, "This woman is freaking amazing! Oh my god!" And began to learn and research some of the work that she's done, and it became super exciting to me that someone who was a curator, she was a curator at the Schomburg of the Photographs and Prints division, could take archives in such a creative, thoughtful way that would impact the field of photography internationally, would
Hmm.
impact the way photographers saw themselves in conversation with a past that was always there but rarely reported on, if at all. She brought a
Right.
lot of things to the fore. And I love a self starter. I like someone who decides that they're going to do something and they do it.
Right.
No permission
Yeah.
needed. So
Right.
that's my third D. Yes.
Okay. Okay. And how has Deborah Willis had an impact on you personally?
So it's a self starter thing. So similarly to just starting in the Life Archive, no one, I did, wasn't, it wasn't an assignment. It was something that I saw a need for because after doing some research, well, the two things. Let me back up a bit. When I came to the Schomburg Center, there were Black queer collections there, Black gay collections primarily, but there were a whole host of books, magazines, and things that the Schomburg had been collecting for years.
Okay.
So I was in the right place at the right time to start what was called the Black Gay and Lesbian Archive, and then the Life Archive. I feel like I have to
Hmm.
say that 1,000 times. Um, and so reading about and learning about, and then finally meeting Deb Willis, it was just, it felt like an affirmation of the work that I wanted to do professionally, personally, but also artistically. As I mentioned, she's a photographer. So there are all these different roles that she inhabits that for someone like me, I knew that archives, well, I knew that archives, one, aren't inert. They're not dead. They're just conversations waiting to be had with someone in a variety of ways. And
Yeah.
so it's the way that she understood archives that helped me do the kind of research and thinking that I want to do to expand on the fields that I'm interested in. And
Right.
so, and again, she's one of the most prolific people I've ever met, in real time. And I just want to give her all the money in the universe and a team of people so she can publish so many more books. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, it's exciting to be around people who have that light in them and understand community and understand history and culture with the depth that she does.
What do you think is like some of the through lines when you think about like people who do this work, whether they would call themselves archivists or not,
Right,
but
right.
who are in the field of cultural heritage,
Hmm.
who are very interested in thinking about um, protecting and legacy, but for the reasons of just being able to share it with people, to
Mm.
give people the same, almost like the same feeling that they get or they've
Hmm.
gotten from discovering that amazing object or letter or photograph. And so, there's so many people who do this in a lot of
Hmm.
ways. Like I was trying to get to that with like Howard, from Howard Dodson to Diana to Deb Willis to Diana Lachette to Deb Willis, because I feel like in a
Hmm.
way the three of them, they're all in cultural heritage, but they did it from different angles. And so
Right.
but what do you think is like some of the like the core tenets that you would attribute to archivists, and that's the reason why you hold them in such high regards? Because I could
I c-
imagine it's different. This question could be different for anybody, could be answered differently. And so I'm curious,
mhm.
what are the things that draw you to people?
So I have an affinity for the Black Power and Black Arts movement. I was born in
Mhm,
1966. This is when the Panthers jumped off. This is when a lot of
mhm.
folks started taking their cue from the civil rights movement in either
Yeah,
good or bad ways. But I feel
yeah.
like Deb Dotson and Diana all came of age in that time, so they knew what the stakes were. They were being educated. They were educating themselves. And so Dinah and Deb both started at the Schomburg in 1980. Dotson came in 1984. And I think being in it, being talking with them and seeing them in motion, they just had they just understood the assignment when it came to this is what we inherited. This is what our ancestors did. This is what the people like our dads and moms did and our grandfathers and grandmothers. And here's what we're going to do.
Right.
And I feel like it was affirmative in a way that when something's called a moment or that people coalesce around a name like a Harlem Renaissance or whatnot, sometimes things pop off that are people are similar ages. So I think the Black Power and Black Arts movement was definitely a through line with them.
Okay.
I think that all three of them are highly intelligent, not just like in terms of knowledge, but just like cultural competency. So they
Right.
understood, and kind of what I mentioned to you before around Diana being curious and having imagination about what's possible. That that's another through line with all three of them as well. And also,
Curiosity.
they are all helping people. They all
Right.
helped other people. So Diana and people have credited Deb, and I knew other people that knew Dots, and they were mentors. They mentored people. They looked out for people. They were part of a large network of people doing this work, so they knew who was hiring or who needed somebody to do this, and so it's powerful to watch and witness. And I'm so freaking lucky,
Yeah.
so lucky to have had to been in their presence to work with them in that way, but also just feeling feeling capable of doing the work that I want to
Right. And you feel like you have a little of all of them in you?
do. Yeah, well, I'm as someone called me once, they called me weird. They said, "You don't seem to belong anywhere." And I was like, and I took that. I think the next thought after they told me that, I said, I feel like I belong everywhere, right? So I feel like that I do have some of all three of them in me. I have vision. I just need more money and more energy. That's it. And
Mhm.
I'll work out the rest. And
Yeah.
so yeah, I just feel really fortunate that there were people who were doing things that similar things that I wanted to do directly in front of me. And that means like I can't thank all three of them enough, really, honestly.
Right. So it's interesting because we have a blog too through Nomadic Archivist Project
Hmm.
called Archivists We Love, and
Yes.
so far, all the archivists I believe that we've highlighted on this blog, they've all ancestors at this point.
Hmm.
Am I correct, or is there anybody who
I
is still
That's a good question. It's Marion
alive?
Stokes, John Edward Bruce.
Very gone.
Yes, very gone. And who do we? Andre Elazie.
Right.
Yes. So I think it's only three. I think it's only those three. I know I'm going to do
Okay.
something on Alexander Gumby, who is an ancestor as well, for our next newsletter and a blog. But yeah, it's good that it's. I think it's important to do recovery work, and I also feel like it's important to acknowledge the people who are here. So
Yeah. Yes, I
and
mean, that's exactly what I
mhm,
was thinking. I was like,
mhm,
I didn't know Stephen and I had talked about that, we would have this conversation, but I didn't know who Stephen was going to talk about. And
mhm,
so, yeah, I thought it was very interesting. I think it's very
mhm.
interesting that you are, um, yeah, giving, I guess praise is not the right word, but celebrating is better.
Oh, definitely. Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely celebrating.
celebrating three amazing people.
Mhm,
Who are still doing work today in some
mhm.
capacity. And so, yeah, that's really awesome.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts on archivists we love before we close out, or anything else?
I would say this, and it was some advice that was given to me a long time ago, which is surround yourself with genius.
Mhm.
And they didn't go into detail about it, but just to surround yourself with Jesus. But I mean, genius. But I think that it's also not just what you know, it's what you do with it.
Yeah.
That you're a kind person, that you're an open person, that at the very least, you know that your craziness is your craziness, right? And not everybody else's. And
Okay.
so, yeah, and but surround yourself
That
with
your craziness is
kind,
your craziness.
meaning that you like it done this way, and that may not make a lot of sense to anybody else, but you like it that way, meaning that you have some self-reflection. That's really
Hmm.
important to me. I like being around people like that, and really making fun of yourself, not taking yourself too seriously is so critical when doing this kind of recovery work. I think because you're part of a larger conversation of people who've been doing this work forever, and they're doing
Right.
it in different ways. And so it really is incumbent upon you to learn who these people are and to lift them up because they
Right.
made you. So yeah.
Yeah. Well said. Well said, Stephen. All right, so we're going to close out. And just to let everybody know that we, do this every other Tuesday.
Mhm,
Sometimes, we have conversations like this. Other times, we'll get a little bit more into the archival process, whatever
mhm,
that is, from thinking about archiving our family's history, to just talking about how we document ourselves through journaling and other things. So, whatever, we're coming up with things all the time. But if you are watching this in the future, and then we hope that you have something that you're interested in hearing from us about, whether we covered it at some point and you want us to
mhm.
cover it in a different way, please let us know. We'd love to
Please
hear from
do.
you. If there are archivists that you appreciate and love, definitely put it in the comments, or put it in the chat and tell us why you love those people. We're going to have another follow-up discussion to this at some point where Stephen's going to ask me about some archivists that I love.
Mhm.
And we'll turn things around. But we hope you enjoyed this conversation.
Mm.
We hope that you enjoy the rest of your week. We will be back in 2 weeks what is it, December 9th? I think it's December 9th,
Okay.
Tuesday, December 9th. Fact check me in the comments. And I can't remember. We also have a podcast. If you like listening to people's stories, we have a podcast called In the Telling, the Global Black Family. Um, on Global Black Family Stories, and
Mm.
we publish it on YouTube because it's now a video podcast, but we also, anywhere that you get your podcast, we have 5 seasons. Our first 3 seasons are only Audible, so you can get that anywhere you listen to your podcast, but the rest is here on YouTube. So we hope you come back and join us at some point, and we wish you nothing but greatness. Anything else for you, Stephen? Okay. All right.
Have a wonderful morning, noon, or night, wherever you are.
Yes.